Let's check this out, chat.
Video sponsored by Surfshark VPN. In the long lifespan of World of Warcraft's existence, there have been dozens of races introduced which just serve as cannon fodder for the player characters to slaughter. Typically, there's a story behind most of these races, but generally it's nothing excruciatingly in-depth. Except for the Arakoa. These are not just bird people.
Dude, I love these birds.
Live in shrouded
They're
darkness
so cool.
that you are sent to kill. They have a lot of lore behind them. I mean, like, a lot. Like, more than a good chunk of the actual playable races. And it's
He made them the ugliest possible. The
like
allied
more
races.
than a good chunk of the
You can make them look so. Dude, this guy looks like a bozo. What is that bozo?
actual playable races. And it's a story
That looks so
starts
bad.
in the very primordial stages of Draenor. But the Arakoa call this planet the Sunstone. Before the bird creatures were born, there was 3 primal gods of Iraq. There was the graceful mother of the Cleary named Rukmar, the clever father of Dreadravens
I
named
love that
Anzu,
bird.
and finally the scornful father of wind serpents named Seath. The legend goes that Rukmar and Anzu battled Seath in the skies above Iraq. The wind serpent was sent to the ground, and with his last breath,
Damn.
the serpent cursed his flesh to corrupt all who touched it as Anzu devoured him. The blood that trickled from the raven's maw created a field of corruption called the Sethic Hollow, and Anzu was cursed with dark visions and became
He's kind of
flightless.
schizo. Dude, this is the best amount in the game.
The father of Dreadravens was ashamed of his curse, and he hid away from Rukmar by using the powers of the void he now possessed from his curse. And in the honor of Anzu, Rukmar used her energies to transform the Cleary into the Arakoa, meaning Hares of Iraq. She taught her children the powers of the light and the powers of the arcane Anzu had formerly possessed. Rukmar then died, and in her honor, the Arakoa built a
Just blew
wondrous
up.
empire and called themselves the Apexis. 2 of the main factions within the empire were the Anhar, who studied holy magic, and the Skalax, who studied the arcane.
I remember doing these
and
quests.
Void from the corrupted pools
I
of
like these
Sethic
guys a
Hollow.
lot.
2,000 years before the Dark Portal, the elemental powers called the Primals and the Breakers constantly warred with each other. The Arakoa generally ignored it until the Primals realized the bird people and their affinity for magic could threaten their existence.
Yo, Fortune.
Smile.
Give the 3-month appreciative, my man.
As long as we roar the skies, you will always be beneath
Oh my
us.
god, he's slapping him.
The plant creatures attacked the Arakoa in a violent war and killed half of the Arakoan army. In
Holy.
response, they built a giant death laser called the Breath of Rukmar that
Oh,
was
I
a
remember.
conduit to channel the power of the sun.
Holy.
I didn't expect that to be over so quickly.
After the war, and 1,500 years before the Dark Portal, the Arakoa entered a golden age in their society. They developed the Apexis crystals, powerful gems that you could simply touch to consume all of the knowledge contained in the jewel. With this magic, they could even transfer unique memories to one another.
Damn.
But there were also Apexis crystals that held forbidden knowledge. Forbidden knowledge like Surfshark VPN, the sponsor of today's video.
That was
Surfshark
smooth.
VPN is a virtual
That's a
private
smooth
network,
transition.
which basically means it
Wow.
can keep your identity safe online from big companies and cyber criminals.
That was a smooth
This also
transition.
includes keeping your data safe when using public Wi-Fi and protecting you from DDoS attacks. Not only this, but your device will be protected
King,
by
my
secure
first ever
antivirus
non-prime
and be
sub
instantly
months old.
alerted
My
if any
virgin olive
potential
oil.
breaches
Olive
ever even
oil.
occur. It's like keeping your private information in a giant
Think of the 3
cartoon
months, my
safe.
man.
Not only this, you can change your VPN server to practically anywhere in the world to bypass geo restrictions. so you can access content on streaming services that are locked behind specific countries. To start using Surfshark VPN and elevate your online security, use my code PLATINUM for an extra 3 months absolutely free. And if you don't like it, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's really no risk in trying it out. Again, use my code PLATINUM for 3 extra months, or check out the link down in the description. Thank you Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. Okay, let's go back to the Apexis crystals. They use these crystals to power giant robots to do their bidding and collect resources on the forest floor. Because the Arakoa had become so proud that walking on the ground was seen as unclean and barbaric. During this golden age, they even rebirthed their goddess Rukmar, but she was only at a small fraction of the power she once possessed. This renaissance didn't last for long. The fall of the Apexis Empire came when the Skalax and the Anhar feuded against each other. The sun-worshipping Anhar believed that they needed to hoard all of the knowledge contained in the Apexis crystals, as their god was the one that was actually alive. Anzu was dead. Dead as hell. Well, as far as they knew. The Skalax slowly lost influence in their society until their wing was forced, and they struck the temple to take the crystals by force. This battle ultimately ended with the breath of Rukmar exploding, destroying the spires in the Apexis Empire in the process. After the destruction of the Empire, the Arakoan groups spread across the land and took their Apexis crystals with them. 200 years later, after small Arakoan groups have settled in obscure places and lived and eventually died, the Skalax Order of Arakoa discovered a cache of Apexis crystals located in northwestern Talador. The only problem was, the place was occupied by the Ogron and their ogre slaves. The Avian leader Yanzi hatched a brilliant plan. Teach the ogres how to wield arcane magic so that they could kill their masters, and the Arakoa can just sneak in and claim their crystals. One of the first ogres to master the powers of magic
ogres know how
was
to use
Gog,
magic?
who they thought would be a perfect leader to incite the rebellion. But Gog surpassed their expectations, and he didn't attack the Ogron. He attacked the Gron, the higher species who were viewed as gods amongst their culture. With Gog's leadership, they were able to overthrow their masters and create the Empire of Goria. But when the Arakoa
ogres have a good lore
snatch up their crystals, Gog caught them, killed all of the Arakoa, and slowly tortured and killed their leader, Yanzi. So really, the only reason why ogres became such a significant superpower on Draenor was because of the Arakoans' greed. Meanwhile, back in the Spires of Iraq, 600 years after the fall of the Apexis and 600 years before the opening of the Dark Portal, the Anhar Order and their worship of Rukmar became twisted and corrupted. The worship of Anzu had been completely thrown to the wayside, and those that disagreed with the Anhar were considered heretics and thrown in the Sethek Hollow pools, where they were bestowed with the Curse of Seath, turning them into flightless, malformed creatures. In a similar vein to Anzu. The Anhar shared their power with a king named Tarok, but when his influence grew too large, they also threw him in the cursed pools and rewrote history to make him seem like a bad guy. Tarok was left shriveled, broken, and on the verge of insanity.
The birds are kind of evil.
It was his lowest moment, and that is when Anzu reached out to him. He taught him and his cursed citizens the ways of shadow magic to fend off their insanity, and bestowed him with the Eye of Anzu in order to contact the shadowy god. Tarok became the leader of the cursed civilization called the Arakoa Outcasts, and helped build the city of Skedis amongst the Apexis ruins. Meanwhile, the pure Arakoa renamed themselves to the Adherents of Rukmar in the city of Skyreach. The Adherents villainized the freaks they had created, and a war between the outcasts and the adherents broke out. Again. Look, if the Arakoa love two things, it's shiny objects and killing each other, okay? Meanwhile, during the war, Tarok's health declined, and Anzu's influence only delayed his insanity. He abandoned his outcasts and desperately started sacrificing his own people in search for a cure. In response, the Talon priest sealed him away, hoping that his insanity would kind of just, go away. And with his imprisonment, the Eye of Anzu went with him, cutting off contact from the god who had saved them. And in his place, the outcasts started worshipping
Wait, so when we
Seath.
write Ravenloft, we're writing a
Then they
god?
started worshipping an unnamed old god. Wait, what? Yeah, I know, totally out of left field, and this old god pretty much has no established lore whatsoever. And the only Arakoa we know today who still worship Anzu are the Grishna in Blade's
Yeah,
Edge
Ravenloft's so
Mountains,
cool.
and are pretty much hated by all of the other Arakoa. The outcasts and the adherents continued to war against each other until a much larger and rapidly expanding empire swelled over Draenor. The Orcish clans united into the Horde and are killing everyone and everything on
But I was so
Draenor.
hyped for this in WoD. I don't know if they were that cool though. This scene was so cool though. And the introduction stories.
Kargath led the Shattered Hand, Burning
Those
Blade,
drawing
and Dragon Maw
pads were
clans
so
and
good.
attempted to attack the High Arakoa, but were stopped by their advanced Apexis weaponry. In turn, Kargath
Holy.
struck a deal with the Arakoan outcasts. If they snuck in and disabled their weaponry, the orcs would raid Skyreach and slaughter all of the High Arakoa. The outcasts upheld their end of the bargain, but what they didn't take into consideration was just how much of a dick Kargath was. Right after taking over the city, he slaughtered the outcasts because they
Oh,
seemed like a
shit.
threat, and he also just simply enjoyed betraying them. He even captured High Arakoa and threw them into the Sethic pools just to watch them suffer as they transformed into their cursed forms. This was an unprecedented massive blow to the Arakoa, and it only got worse from there.
This race is
Power-hungry
just taking
orcs then
Ls.
tore the world apart with their magics and transformed Draenor into Outland. This destroyed the spires of Iraq, it destroyed Rukmar, and the bloodied pools of Seath. In fact, the only Arakoa that
Great
remained
transitions.
were the ones holed up in Skedis, Auchindoun, and other random outposts dotted around the planet. Flash forward to the Burning Crusade expansion, and the players enter Outland. In Terakar Forest, named after Lord Terok, his followers have been driven to madness, which means it's morally okay to kill them. And then also they're stealing orphans.
I remember this.
So, I guess that's a good excuse too. The Skedis cult are also working on summoning
Nasty.
Terok
Give me
at
the
the
T1,
perfect
appreciate it.
moment when the stars are aligned. But player characters summon him prematurely and kill him. In Auchindoun, Talon King Ikis believes he is Terok reborn and leads the cult in their nefarious deeds. They have used their evil magic to dominate the will of Anzu, the god that saved their lives, and are using him to attack the Emerald Dream.
It's kind of fucked up.
Because, this is a part of a druid quest, and player characters are sent to kill Anzu.
Dude, I remember hiring druids just to come farm this, and they would charge money because they would have to use one of their resets, right?
Yeah, no, they just kill him. This god of legend that has lived in darkness for thousands of years is killed by 5 clown suit
Wait,
wearing
that's fucked up, dude. He's a good guy. He's been trying to help, and then we summon him, we just bang him.
idiots.
There has to be
And
more story,
if you're
no?
lucky, you can get him as a mount. Yeah, this is an awkward ending to this lore because TBC was written before a lot of this foundational lore was ever written, because that was made in Warlords of Draenor 7 years later. Look, a lot of TBC's writing has this tendency to be awkward in retrospect because it was WoW's first ever expansion, and Blizzard had no idea I would be writing a video about random races lore 15 years later. Now, thankfully, not all of the Arakoa have been driven to madness, and the Skedis exiles reside within the lower city of Shatrath, and the player characters ally themselves with them. And, yep, that's pretty
That's
much
it,
all
yeah.
the Arakoa lore in a nutshell. Now, unfortunately, since their introduction in the Burning Crusade and the continuation of their lore in the Warlords of Draenor, the Arakoa have been entirely absent from all of Warcraft's story, which makes the giant chunk of their lore even more surprising. Like, what other random world-building mob that you kill has, like, 4 wars worth of lore and then some? If the Arakoa ever return, it might be if we ever come back to the subject of old gods, seeing as there's literally no lore about the
think
one
next
they
expansion
tried to
they said
summon,
about the gods
and also
again, no?
Blizzard now has a precedent for bringing back obscure characters from TBC. And on the
Wait, his brother was that guy?
now has a precedent for bringing back obscure
Is that the same guy, chat?
characters from
tripping?
TBC. And
I
on
don't
the
remember his
topic of
name.
them being a playable race, sure, there's a small population of them, but that hasn't stopped Blizzard from making
Wait, he
other
was in the game
races
since
playable
I didn't
despite
know
their
that.
abysmally small population.
I remember seeing
But
that NPC, but I
really,
didn't know.
I just wish there was more bestial races in Warcraft, and I don't mean the furry bait ones. I want to play like an actual
Dude, they look
gross
so
horror
bad.
movie monstrosity monster person who lacks humanoid features. Something, you know, that could be feared rather than fawned over.
I don't know if I'll ever get them because maybe not. I don't know. Their helmet design, they would have to redesign everything, no?
Then again, who am I kidding? I'm sure someone in the comments wants to fuck this thing.
Oh.
Don't forget to check out Surfshark VPN down in the description.
The only good memory I have with those birds is in TBC when that Draenei comes to Shadra and flies you over into their secret base, and you kill a bunch of them and you get to get a trinket that turns you into one of them, and you get the Nether Ray. I remember I worked my ass for that daily quest. Good video, I'll share it to you guys, and I'm gonna get some food, chat. Thanks for joining us.